Hey everyone, welcome back to the RePHIL studio. This is your host SB4. This is your weekly Bang Dream podcast, giving you the best up-to-date information on upcoming news and updates to the franchise and series, as well as give you insights from prominent community members sharing their stories and experiences about the game. As always, feel free to check out our website, links in the description below on how you can support the podcast either by joining the YouTube membership program below or by subscribing to my Twitch. As always, all Filler Nation members can listen to these podcasts live, but of course, anyone's welcome to join the Discord to interact with our special guests in the studio, as well as join a fun and loving community. So we hope to see you there. So it's honestly amazing how much a week could change so much about the franchise and so much about the series. There is a lot of news we need to talk about. So we need to go right into the weekly news corner. Be warned, it's a lot of information, mostly on the negative side. But yeah, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to have a really wild ride with the weekly news corner. And of course, we have our special guest waiting in the other side of the studio as well. So let's start off with the weekly news corner. All right. So, let's start off with JPdori as always. So JPdori, by the time you're listening to this podcast, the current event, Scribble in the Blue, a full Afterglow event, should have already passed or just finished. Now, there was actually a very serious issue with this particular event. I might have mentioned this in last week's podcast, but this was supposed to be a team live event, one of the first few team live events. I think it's either the third one or the fourth one of the entire game. But when the game first came out with this event, there were major issues with this event and how it was supposed to function. So the game went under maintenance, and it basically didn't have any events happening for about a couple of days. And then they actually suddenly changed it to a mission live event. So now Scribble in the Blue is a full Afterglow mission live event and not a team live event. And it ran from the 22nd all the way to the 29th. That's a bit of a warning flag, a red flag, because perhaps Bushiroad, even in the JP side, they are struggling to maintain the right coding or whatnot. But either way, there were some major issues with Team Live, and they had to change the event format in order because they just couldn't fix the issues that it had present with Team Live. So big red flag. It kind of shows that maybe the coding that they had for Team Lives and possibly for Medley Lives as well is maybe not as stable, is not as good as they thought they would like to have. And that's a problem because you think about all the issues we have in ENdori right now, which we are going to go very soon. I wouldn't be surprised if Team Lives could also cause a lot of issues on the ENdori front as well, if it's already giving a lot of issues in the JPdori side. So it is quite unfortunate that this Team Live event was changed and sort of basically canceled because of major issues in the event type, and they had to change it to a mission live. So for those who may have been a bit confused about what's going on in JPdori, that's actually what's happening. They actually changed an event type because of errors that they couldn't fix on time. So, you know, not a good look. We'll see how things go in the future with Team Lives and other lives. But let's just hope that JPdori can also fix their issues and make sure that they'll be able to resolve anything that they might have when it comes to errors. We don't know the next event yet. I talked about predictions already in the previous podcast. I'm not going to go into too much depth in there. Again, let's hope that maybe a full Roselia event will come soon, and also maybe the Razor Suilin Band Story 2 will come out as expected on December 10th. So before I talk about ENdori, there's actually one other major news that I want to talk about, and it is particular to the sister franchise, or I guess we call it brother franchise, Argonavis and Double A side. So Double A side, there's news about a couple days ago that shared that the Double A side game is officially going to be closing its servers on January 31st, 2022. If you guys aren't familiar with AA Side, it's basically a sort of, again, as I mentioned, a sister franchise of Bushiroad and Bang Dream, where it focuses on male characters and building bands. And, you know, it has a very similar vibe, but although it has a bit more of a mature themes to it, because there's high school students, college students, even working adults working as bands. So when the news first came out, I was honestly very surprised. I didn't think the game was doing that poorly, and they suddenly said that the game was completely canceled, or not canceled, but they just were going to terminate the game on January. And I was like, whoa, that's very, very strange, and I do feel kind of bad for the fans. But what ended up happening was that the reason why they had to terminate the game was because they are finally allowing AA Side and the Argonavis franchise to nurture themselves as a independent group. So if you guys might have seen, the branding was always AA Side from Bang Dream or Argonavis from Bang Dream. So what Bushiroad is actually doing is they're going to have an independent, right? They sort of grab people from their team and make it into an independent team to focus solely on AA Side and that franchise. And they're going to be called From Argonavis from now on. Then this company is going to actually launch on February 1st, 2022, which is literally the day after the game terminates. So I'm still a little bit confused as to why they need to terminate the game in order to branch off and make their own independent Argonavis company. But I guess it might be because you want, in order to sort of fully dissociate from the brand name, you got to terminate the game. And perhaps they might do a Final Fantasy 14 like esque revival, where at first it really did not work out. So they basically blew everything up and started over again. And look where Final Fantasy 14 is now. I did remember how unsuccessful it was at the start, and they literally just blew it all up. And it's now one of the best Final Fantasy games, at least from what I've heard, of all time. So, you know, I don't really play AA Side, but I wish them nothing but the best. Especially, I have a lot of friends who are fans of the AA Side franchise and Argonavis and all the other bands there. I think it's really deserving that they have sole focus and not just being a latch onto the Bang Dream name. Being able to have independence in the company, and having the company in the sister company focus solely on the AA Side franchise. I think it's going to be really good for its growth, and not just kind of just take the leftovers of whatever Bang Dream has. So it's good, I think, that they're going independent, and I wish them nothing the best. I hope to see some future growth in that franchise. And they also mentioned, right, the lives and all those other stuff are not going to be impacted at all. It's just the game is going to be impacted, and now it's going to be developed by this independent company starting on February 1st. So again, all the best to AA Side. Let's hope for positive news. And again, for the fans, let me know what you think. I don't know if you guys are already aware about this, but again, AA Side is going to be fully revamped starting next year. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about that? Let's get to the meat of the discussion here, and probably why many of you are listening today. We have ENdori, and the Do-Re-Mi Hello Happy World collab is happening right now. Or should it be, or should happen? Because it's not. Okay, so there's a reason why if there's no events going on right now. Some people might be in the game, be like, where's the event? There's no gacha, there's no events, what's going on? Well, a couple hours before maintenance, which was supposed to happen on November 26th, ENdori, EN Bushiroad, issued a statement saying that they have to postpone the maintenance for version 4.10, which is the update needed for the Do-Re-Mi Hello Happy collab, as well as other things like the Dreamfest and the Bandori 3 events. Now, apparently, there was an issue because Google, according to them, Google did not approve of their update. So they're not allowing the game, or EN Bushiroad, to update their game. Possibly because it doesn't follow some policies or whatnot. So Google is actually preventing this update from happening. And of course, they don't want it to, let's say, only update iOS and then not update Google, then iOS goes ahead while Google falls behind. It's a whole disaster, right? You can't just do that. So you have to postpone everything. You just have to wait until and see. And ENdori does not have a backup plan on this either, right? It's not something they foresaw, and it was unfortunate that it happened. But like, could they have a backup plan? Maybe. Could they have planned this better? Maybe. Like, I imagine they couldn't have foresaw that Google would suddenly say, no, we're not going to allow you to update the game. But, oh man, it's a whole disaster. Like, I do believe that, yes, it's unfortunate and unlucky that Google suddenly said, oh, we're not going to update your game, even though for the past 3 years, the franchise has not had any issues with Google and updating. But at the same time, right, I can't fully, it's not, ENdori is not fully blameless either. Like, why did it take so long to issue this 4.10 update? And then they try to excite people with the collab login bonus and with all that, right? And then they just suddenly give us a huge bombshell saying that, oh, well, actually, the update can't work. I think there's some other major issues with ENdori with their ability to plan ahead, ability to, not rush things to the last moment, because it may as well be an instance where they rush this update to the last minute and Google is like, whoa, this is a bit too much, and maybe they flagged it down because of how rushed the update was going to be. And again, I don't know the exact details of why this is why Google flagged it down, but it's rough. And I think the worst part as well is that just like what we've seen within the past couple of months with ENdori, they have been very untransparent, or lack of transparency in terms of what exactly is going on. A lot of people saw the login bonus and they thought, okay, events happening, we're good to go, and it's suddenly no events and nothing's happening. They only really posted one really small update on Twitter, and they didn't really go into that much detail either on Twitter. And it doesn't really show that they're really communicating with the consumers, which is not good. It's not good at all. They didn't even make an announcement on the official Discord server. They didn't make an important update. Well, there was a in notification in game, but not a lot of people read that. But I think they could have done more to try and let people know that, oh yeah, we messed up. Or they're gonna say that Google messed up, but at the same time, it's not good, because a lot of people are confused. I've had many people approach me asking, where's the event? What's going on? I thought the event was finally happening. There's a lot of lack of communication between ENdori and the consumer now, and that was one of their strengths back then as a company. But now it's getting to the point where they're communicating a lot less than even the average consumer. And I think a lot of consumers, a lot of people I've talked with, they want to see a roadmap, right? Because they want a sense of direction. And it's not only a sense of direction for the players, but it's also a sense of direction for the workers at ENdori, right? To get something done, okay, have a schedule ready and then follow that schedule. But I think the reason why they can't show a roadmap to us is because they don't have a roadmap themselves. They don't know. They don't have direction as to where the game is going. It's really sad. It's honestly really sad, and I think this lack of direction might eventually, destroy this franchise. The fact that they are not following a specific direction, they have no goal, they have no schedule. It's hard for consumers to follow, and it shows that again a lack of incompetency. From ENdori. So it's really disappointing. And I think the worst part is that because they're not telling us what's wrong with Google, and they're just basically saying, we'll have to wait until Google approves us before we can do the maintenance. There's no estimated timelines. It's the weekend by the time I'm recording this, so I know for the next 2 days, no events either, because they don't start events on weekends either. It could be weeks. It could be even months before we actually get this update, because we don't know how long Google's going to get back to us. They did say it could go up to March of 2022. We could have no events for the next 3 months. It's a huge blow. And when we were trying to speed up the schedule for whatever reason, to speed up the schedule, now we might be falling behind. It's just a terrible look. It's a terrible look. Ever since this weekly news corner started with the in the podcast, I think it's been such a bad omen for Bushiroad. Like, it's only been going downhill ever since. So I don't know. Maybe I've been jinxing it or whatnot, but it's a bad look. It's a really bad look. And I know there's supposed to be Black Friday sales with the stars, and the stars are way cheaper now, but there's actually no gacha or no events to spend the stars on. So there's no one's going to buy it. And people are going to, oh man, the sales are going to drop dramatically. Oh, this is a disaster. I have nothing much else to say about this. So again, follow Bushiroad, Bushiroad, follow the official Discord of Bang Dream of Huffcord. And as always, I'll be trying to update people as well on Twitter and my Discord as well. So if you want to follow those, feel free to do that. But for the time being, we have no idea when ENdori is going to get their act together or when Google's going to get their act together. Yeah, and we'll just have to wait and see until the update comes. And until then, we just have to sit and wait and possibly just stop caring about the game. So it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. Again, nothing much else to say. It's disappointing. It's frustrating. Yes, you could call it unlucky, but I think there's a lot of layers of why these issues are happening, and it's just it's not a good look. Anyway, enough of the weekly news corner. Let's hop on to the other side of the studio. We have our special guest waiting. Let's have a great conversation with them, and I look forward to seeing you there. Want to support the RePHIL studio? Check out our website. Links in the description below. Here you can learn more about the podcast as a whole, as well as complete our feedback form to give comments about how we can improve the project, as well as suggest any future special guests that you would like to see on the studio. You can also learn more about how you could support the podcast by joining the Filler Nation, either through a Twitch subscription or joining the YouTube membership below. Thanks again to the Filler Nation members for your constant support, and a reminder that all Filler Nation members can access the podcast live when they are recording in the Unga Academy Discord server. We hope to see you there. All right. Welcome back to the studio, and let's refill to 99 because we are ready to begin our special guest area in our conversation here. So, great pleasure and honor to have Soran joining us today in the RePHIL studio as our special guest, as part of our special guest feature. Just a brief intro about Soran. Soran has been pretty active in the Bandori community, notably getting first place in the Prelude Replay event inside the game, but also very heavily involved in many other projects, including translations, streaming, and art. Soran, a great pleasure having you join the RePHIL studio today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And huge shout outs to the people who apparently requested me. That's really humbling and honoring.
For sure. Soran, is there anything else you want to add to your intro?
Is this where the YouTuber thing goes, where I like plug all of my content, be like, hey yo, click these links?
Why not? Why not? You could plug them now, and I'll give you a chance to plug them later at the end, so people now have context.
I'll give Phil some more extra work on the editing too. Be like, all right, on the bottom left of the screen, you'll see my Twitch, twitch.tv/Soran_chat. No. Yeah, if you want to keep up with me, most of my stuff is on Twitter. I do, like he said, translations, some streams, some art, couple random other things here and there, but yeah, it's great being here.
All right, well, again, welcome, Soran, and again, all these links will be in the description of this video as well, so feel free to check Soran out. But let's get right into it. You mentioned, well, at least I mentioned, right, you got into Bandori, and you've been involved in many different parts of the franchise, but how did that all start? How did you first get into Bandori?
Man, I'm the boomer on the street here who's yelling at people to get off his lawn. Yeah, so I like telling this story because it's kind of funny.
Okay.
I originally got into Bandori because I originally played Fire Emblem Heroes.
Mm.
Um, and I was, you know, like I was pretty hardcore casual, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't spending any money, but I was like doing the PvP stuff, being somewhat competitive. But this was before all the power creep. This was early 2018. And there was an Easter banner, and my favorite character, Sharina, got a bunny girl, like, you know, Easter whatever skin. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I gotta pull her. And so I spent like the equivalent of, I don't know, 20, 30 pulls or whatever, a fair amount.
Yeah.
Um, didn't get her. I was like, you know what? Screw this game. I quit. I'm finding something else. So I ditched Fire Emblem Heroes, was scrolling through the Google Play Store, and happened to stumble across this Bang Dream Girls Band Party rhythm game. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Whatever. They look cute. And that was during searching for stars, which is like the fifth event of EN.
Hmm.
So I've been around since 2018. It's been a wild ride. I was like kind of casual about it for a long time, and then I watched the anime and I just got hooked because
Hmm.
Poppin' Party really captured my heart. And it was just kind of like a downhill ride for my wallet from there.
Uh-oh. Your wallet didn't know after was spared from Fe, but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Bandori became the new thing. Well, that's obviously very interesting, and you already mentioned your favorite band. By the sounds of it, is Poppin' Party. I guess maybe talk a little bit more about what made Poppin' Party so I guess so important for you, why you love them so much, and also your favorite character in the
Oh
franchise.
yeah. I'll actually answer that last one first.
Okay.
People can't really see, but well, maybe they can see. But my
Mm-hmm.
Discord profile right now is in Arisa. Arisa is my favorite, largely in part because I love her voice actor, Ayasa-chan. Um, but I mean, I have the I have a lot of problems with trying to choose favorites. I love all the Bandori characters. I have like five favorite, like number one favorites. So you know, it changes on whatever you ask.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Pop Party is definitely my favorite band. I do love all the bands, but Pop Party is just like a little bit above and beyond. And I guess like for me, it was a lot because, especially watching the anime, but also
Mm-hmm.
just like following the girls throughout. Um, there was just like so much to dig into and so many things that I related to. I've always been something of a loner. I'm a lonely boy, and Poppin' Party is all about a bunch of loner girls who are like, hey, you know what? Let's be each other's first friends. Um, so I felt that. It was really like charming and like sweet to me. And I think that a lot of people, this is my side as a translator coming in, with all the like BetaDori stuff. If you don't know what BetaDori is, Bang Dream actually went through like a kind of renewal process in 2016. They
Mm-hmm.
basically redid the entire project. And so there's something that we refer to as BetaDori, which was the original concept of Bang Dream. And so a lot of stuff like that kind of gets lost, but you can see the kind of shadows of uh, in the framework of Bang Dream as it is today. And so like digging through Beta Dory and like coming to love those girls as well, because they are very different characters. Um, and like seeing the journey that real life Popipa went through to make this project happen. Because if not for their efforts, like Bang Dream would have flopped. It was not doing well commercially for like 2 or 3 years, and they pushed through and they made it. So
What's
just a
really
lot of like success
fascinating?
stories.
Yeah, what's really fascinating? I remember reading that one article from, I don't remember what website it was,
Wait, oh,
but
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
the one website where it's just like people are begging, stores are
Begging
begging
them to
people to
buy their
buy Bang
merch.
Dream merch. Oh man, this
We've come so
the
far.
franchise has gone really far since then. It's crazy how far it's gotten. I think a lot of, like, especially those like boomer fans of the franchise like you could really see how much the franchise has grown since.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So of course that means that not only you were really passionate about the characters and the bands and stuff, but I guess it's a lot more, right, with the franchise. And you also mentioned seiyus like Ito Ayasa, the voice actress
Mhm.
of Arisa. What other parts about the seiyus that fascinate you so much, or other parts of the franchise that really interest you a lot?
That's an interesting question. Part of it is definitely just like the novelty of. I wasn't like into the real life parts of like Love Live, for instance. In a similar idol like adjacent project, or multimedia project, I should say. And it wasn't until Bang Dream that like multimedia franchises like as a thing kind of like caught my eye. The one other example I can think of when I was younger was I got really into the No Game No Life radio, No Radio No Life,
Mm.
hosted by Matsuoka Yoshitsugu and Kayano Ai, who are like the two main character voices. Um, and just like ever since then, like that radio show, like it was so much fun to me. Like I remember being like, I don't know, like 14, 15 or something, like scouring the internet, like trying to find these because they were really, really hard to find. Um, but like it was just so like heartwarming and like they had such a good dynamic and they were having so much fun. And I think like that was the first time I realized that, oh wow, voice actors are like really impressive people and really charming people. Um and like I kind of like relived that when I started digging into Bandori. Because it tried so hard to bring the voice actors to you, right? It was such an involved multimedia project. Like the characters are the Seiyu, and the Seiyu are the characters. Like they tried really hard to do that, and I guess it was partly that, right? Like when I saw that there was a Bang Dream Radio, and then there was like all these other like talk shows and TV shows and the live concerts, obviously, like watching those as well. I was like, man, can you imagine like being a voice actor and then joining a project and they're like, hey yo, learn to play keyboard or learn to play guitar. It's like, what? And they did it. They actually did it. And they're actually like a really talented, really skilled band. And like at this point, damn, like they're I don't know if they're mainstream, quote unquote, but like, like they're a deal. They are a thing. And
They're definitely getting there. I think in terms of fame, or will hopefully again, it's great to see the the voice actresses grow as well. Like personally, again, I was pretty
oh yeah.
into the voice acting a bit. I would know like some really like A grade level seiyus and see them like voice in
Hmm.
various animes. But there's definitely like a very personal connection when you see the Poppin' Party team grow, the Roselia team
Oh,
grow. It
for
really
sure.
is just something that I greatly appreciate, and I think it's something that this franchise has definitely nurtured quite well for sure.
And I think to speak to that, right? Like most of the Roselia, original Roselia, well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but most of Poppin' Party at least,
Hmm.
was like either completely new or like had only done like one or two things, right? Like Aimi and Hashi had done other things before, but like Ayasa, Rimi, and Saichi were all like really, really new.
Hmm.
Um, and so like getting to see Bandori be their first step into like this kind of profession and them working so hard and making it is like it, like that's a real life anime story right there.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, yeah. Soren, do you have any other seiyus you follow in particular that you enjoy from this franchise?
From this franchise,
Yeah,
it pains my heart to say I don't follow her, but like Akeshan was like one of my favorite seiyu
for
from
sure.
who was involved with Bandori, and like it always makes me a little sad whenever you see those like whenever I think back to when Akeshan graduated from the project and she was kind of like don't don't refer to me as Rinko, like don't think of me as Rinko anymore.
Hmm.
Um, if people didn't know that it was a very like bittersweet, but like it was her way of trying to be like don't hold Nonchan to like expectations that you would hold for me. Like she
Hmm.
she is Rinko now, not me. Don't let me like overshadow her. But it was sad like seeing her distance herself like that.
For sure, for sure. But that's kind of sometimes how life goes, sometimes how the business goes. But yeah, it's definitely very interesting to see how the journey has grown since. Right, again.
For sure.
Yurishi's and Akishan's graduation. It's been like more than 3 years now. It's like kind of crazy
Oh my
to
god,
think.
yeah.
It's like it's been that long, but yeah, I almost remember it like it's yesterday. But yeah, that's just how it is. That's how it is. Um, Sorna, you mentioned earlier again seeing like voice actor radios, and of course Matsuoka and Kayano are very well known
Oh yeah.
seiyus. Did you watch those like first? I imagine you watched those subbed or at least to some extent. And did that inspire you to like go into that pathway of translating for the franchise?
So this is funny. English subs did not exist for those. It was hard
Mm.
enough to find them raw, let alone subbed. But there
Mm-hmm.
were every now and again Korean subs. For people who don't know, I'm Korean American.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I can speak some Korean. But Korean and Japanese are very similar languages, and I think at some point I just watched so much anime that I like subconsciously picked up Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
at least to a conversational level. And so yeah, if it wasn't raw, it was Korean subs, and that's how I kind of enjoyed the radio show. But yeah, to answer your question, um yes, I translate the Bang Dream radio, like the original JPdori one from
Mm-hmm.
2015. And the reason I do entire episodes rather than just snippets, because I know fully am aware that people don't want to watch whole episodes for the most part. Like most
Mm-hmm.
people would rather watch a 5 minute segment.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like who was the guy who was desperately searching for the entire like No Radio No Life series, like I know how it feels to finally like stumble across that one version, that one full version that you could actually understand and actually like listen to it. You're like, oh my god, finally I did it. Like I know how that feels. And so I guess like a lot of the impetus for me translating the radio show specifically is that feeling of like being able to help other people experience what I experienced.
It's like passing down some what you enjoyed, and then passing it down to the next person, and hopefully have them be able to share again, as you mentioned, share the same experience you've had hearing that.
Yeah, you
Um,
got to pay it forward, you know?
yeah, pay it forward. That's what I was trying to find, that word, pay it forward. So as a result, of course, then you created Hakanai Subs, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and maybe again, we already talked briefly about how it kind of started, but maybe just kind of share like what sort of motivated you to get it started, and how did those first few projects go when you started translating these JPdori radio shows.
This one might be a bit of a longer conversation, so let
Sure,
me take a
sure.
quick swig of water before I get
Yep, no worries.
in. Yeah, so here's my anime backstory. Back
Okay.
when I was first getting into Bandori, I didn't have many people that I could talk to about it, right?
Mhm.
I was on Twitter, but like I was like one of those small love mail accounts. This is like Zoomer Soran talk here. I was just
Mhm.
like one of those. I don't want to say randos because that's like really rude, but like you know like just like another one among many. Just kind of milling about. And let me preface by saying that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm also still a rando. I made a whole new account just so I could be a rando. But anyway, um, yeah, I didn't really have many friends. Like I wasn't joining Discord servers or anything.
Mhm.
I didn't know that I didn't know Pubcord existed, for instance. Like that's how little
Mhm.
I knew about the Discord side of things.
Mhm.
Um, and so like I had one IRL who happened to see me playing the game and was like, "Oh, you're playing some idol shit, you fucking loser." And I was like, "Bro, come on." And I showed her like the loading screen because I was updating something. And then she
Mhm.
saw Kaoru and she was like, "Oh my god. You didn't tell me there was a," and she's a lesbian, so she used the D word that I will not use. But you didn't tell me there were in this game. I was like, well, you are making fun of me playing some idol bullshit, so shut the fuck up. And so she got hooked. And there was like a good couple of months where we were just like, talking back and forth, reading the event stories, talking
Mhm.
about them, talking about the characters, playing together, all that sort of thing. And this was around the time where this was in August when I first like got her hooked, August of 2018. And so this was about the time where I started getting really into the Seiyu content.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to share that with her, but there wasn't much English content out. There was some, and I'll talk about that later probably. But for the most part, most of the stuff that I wanted to share was not translated. And I understood I understood it, um, but it would be really annoying to watch it together and pause every 2 seconds and be like, oh, they're saying this and this. So instead of doing that, I decided, hey, I'll just sub it and then we can just watch it together.
Mm.
Um, and so the reason I chose the name Hakanai Subs is related to the fact that she was so into Kaoru. I was originally actually Take My Hand Subs, TMH, and that was because we love spamming that Take My Hand stamp. It's a very good stamp. The Kaoru extending her hand out.
Oh yeah.
But it was just kind of like a mouthful and not very catchy. And then like at some point we kind of just like, oh, the H in Take My Hand could be Hakanai. And then at some point I just like boiled it down. Let's just be Hakanai Subs, whatever. But yeah, I started with one of the Blu-ray specials from Poppin' Party's 5th Live. And that video is still out somewhere on Vimeo. Don't look it up. It's not very well done. I've definitely done much better work since then. But it wasn't until actually later, after doing that first big project, I took on what was at the time maybe the biggest project a Bang Dream translator had done. And I didn't know like any of the other Bang Dream translators. I was just like this random fan doing things on my own for one friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
I translated the Roselia radio show at Garu Party, like 1 hour segment in its entirety. Because I really wanted to watch it with my friend. I was like, this one's really fun. You have to watch it with me. And so I was like, like I'd already done all the work. So I was like, I guess I'll just like tweet it out.
Mm-hmm.
And Forever Senpai, AN Subs for people who know, they happened to find it and they were like, oh my God, somebody translated an hour-long radio show segment. What the heck? And so I kind of got roped in. Not roped in. I actually like asked them like, "Hey, is there like a translator group? Can I like join?" And they were kind of like my mentor figure in that sense of just like helping me initiate myself in alongside the other translators and like get to know the other folks in the translating team, and also just like acting as like a person to bounce ideas off of, bounce translations off of, ask for help with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of like my foray into being Hakanai Subs, as it were.
Wow. What a very interesting story, just so happened to play the game, have a friend just look over, be like, "What are you doing with this?" And then it just all spirals down, and
It's everything's a coincidence, It's all the small coincidences.
it all works out. But again, that's sort of how it also answers the question of how it became Hakanai Subs and not just any other random name. But again, the work you've done, I'm sure a lot of people have seen it, have really appreciated your work, your friend included, who was probably kind of the main reason. But again, it wasn't only your friend; it was many other people as well who ended up watching it. Yeah. So you might have already answered this question, but maybe share us what probably may have been your most difficult translating project. Again, you may have already answered this, but maybe share a bit more about a project that was just really challenging for whatever reason, and share a bit more about that.
That's an interesting question. I'll have to think about that one for a second.
You've done a lot. You've done a lot of projects, right?
Yeah, because like there's a difference between being difficult and being busy work, right? Like I do a lot of very long projects, but those aren't necessarily difficult. They're just kind of obnoxious. Obnoxious isn't really the word I'm looking for, but grindy.
Yeah.
I think one of the times that I felt really challenged was the first time actually that I tried translating the entire radio episode. And the part that's hard is that you learn a lot of like proper Japanese when you watch anime because people talk very clearly. They don't tend to use like slang, or if they do, it's like a very character centric trait.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's very standard, proper Japanese for the most part. Um, and so listening to people talk in a way that's extremely casual without any visual cues, because again, it's a radio show, it's all audio. Um, Sometimes it was hard to tell who was talking. Sometimes they talked over each other and I couldn't parse the audio apart from each other. And there was just like a whole bunch of like words and phrases and ideas that I'd never heard, and a lot of like cultural pieces too, of like not getting jokes, and so having to like listen through it multiple times and looking up what they're talking about and being like, I still don't get why this is funny, but I guess this is what they're talking about. Um, it's Yeah, I think that was the most challenging part, because it's not about translating a language is hard, but it's not. I almost said it's not. It's hard, but it's not difficult.
Fair.
It's more straightforward than you might think in a lot of ways. It's an art form, right? Like, there's definitely ways to do it well versus doing it, you know, in a way that works. But I think, yeah, that was very difficult in like the part of translating that isn't just the mechanical skill, the technical skill of knowing Japanese and knowing English. It was the part of like understanding the culture, understanding the nuances, getting the jokes, and like being able to make that at least like, even if not funny in English, at least like make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I would say that was it continues to be the hardest project for me, is the radio shows.
Yeah, but I could definitely see that because, again, as you mentioned, the language they could use is more casual. They could be talking over each other, and in general, there could be some like small nuances in terms of how they say it and their like body language, and that could really affect what the tone of what exactly they're talking about. So I could definitely see how that could be quite challenging. So but again, and I think for a lot of people, length is of course going to be an issue. But again, for you, Soren, it doesn't seem like that's necessarily the biggest challenge for you. As long as you have the time, you have the motivation to do it, you're gonna grind hours long of radio just to get that content out and be able to share that with people.
I think it goes to show that's how I got a T1. It's just like, hey, yo, I don't mind grinding for hours on end, right? It's just like, all right,
Wow,
let's do
well,
it.
we'll definitely talk about that T1 very, very soon. Before we do that, just to kind of close off this section here, is there any other future translations that you like projects or like really big projects that you want to do, or are you going to be mostly focused on smaller projects, like for instance, being like hours in and you immediately sub like the game size of Yuki Limit, the new Pop and Party song, the moment like it came out.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, is that going to be like more your focus, or you're still going to have some big projects ahead?
I think just like with my schedule, how it is these days, I'm pretty busy with both school and work.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's probably why I've been focusing more on the smaller, easy projects lately. But for instance, I have been working on the sixth episode of Bang Dream Radio. It's like 70% done, so maybe we'll
Mm-hmm.
see that by the end of the year, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think like once my schedule opens up, one of the things I really wanted to do was go through all the their Popipa had their own ongoing. I think it might have ended,
Mm-hmm.
but they had like a YouTube series going on of just like, we're just Popipa, we're just doing whatever the heck we want.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Popiban, the Popipa broadcast or Popipa program.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to go through and translate all of those at some point.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that when that time comes. Hopefully, again, depending on your schedule, and of course, we already mentioned where we could find you. So again, for viewers out there, definitely look forward to those projects.
Be
When
sure to
that time
smash
comes.
that like button, ring that bell, subscribe to the channel below so that Phil can bring you some more hot content.
Well, that also kind of leads a little bit to the fact that you're not only a translator, you do other forms of art, and other art forms include content creation on Twitch, a little bit of drawing yourself. Maybe just briefly share a bit of what you do there as well.
Oh yeah. So on Twitch, and on YouTube recently, I stream like kind of just whatever. Very laid back, small time streamer. Like, it's just the casual vibes, We're not trying to do anything fancy. But I draw a lot. I play like a variety of fighting games. Genshin every now and again, Bang Dream whenever I'm tiering. And recently we've been watching event stories from Bang Dream every week. I know Phil has rated me a couple times while we're doing that. Huge shout outs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just like if you ever want to get to know me as a person or if you have questions, like Twitch is a very good place to find me because that's where I'm the most casual. And I'm always open to chat. I'm a very open person, so.
Oh, for sure. The conversation is kind of going all over the place, but what fighting games you're playing right now?
Oh, right now. So, I've played some Melty. I've played some Strive, but like the one that I play the most is definitely Fighters, Dragon Ball Fighters.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen from some of my previous videos or some of my previous podcasts. Yeah, I do play.
I watched a short VOD of you playing Jacko for some Strive tournament.
Don't. How about you remove that off my memory? After memory, that was.
You won one.
I won a game. I didn't win any sets, but fighting games were sort of my big passion for quite a bit of time. It has kind of dropped off since, but. Still, if I want to have a bit of fun, I'll definitely try and try to hopefully pick up another fighting game in the future.
Hey, man, if you want to play a crappy Jacko mirror match, we can have fun with that.
Well, we'll see when that time comes. I'll maybe try and improve my game first, but yeah. Okay. Well, again, Soran, as we already mentioned, if you wanna, if anyone of the viewers want to learn a little bit more about him personally, there's the Twitch. You can also check out his art as well, and just it's another fun time. And as content creators, it's always good to support each other and just give shout outs to each other. And content creation, I think for both you and me is like a very like chill thing, right? We're just trying to have fun and just make sure that everyone's happy.
I think, and maybe this is my bias, but I think that's a great way to do content creation because like it's just I think that it makes the world a better place when everybody's just like making things out of what makes them happy.
For sure. Just a reminder that all special guests featured in the RePHIL studio can be found in the Unga Academy Discord server. Links in the description below. Join our great community who's very passionate about Bang Dream, tiering, and many other interests. And we have weekly community events as well as contests for people to complete through challenges. Of course, all Filler Nation members can access the podcast live when they're recording in this Discord server as well. So we hope to see you there. Let's switch topics here. Of course, you getting into the game and eventually, feeling like, you're sort of like addicted to the game. You really love playing the game. Soran, what first convinced you to say, hey, if I love this game so much and I played this game so much, why not start going for titles? And our podcast here is very, very, very tiering centric, based on the name, based on the language we use. It's very tiering centric. So what sort of first got you into tiering? What sort of gave you that the guerrilla thoughts that you want to tier for an event?
What made me become monkey? So I actually went through a very slow process. I went through the actual like meltdown of like I started without even getting a title and searching for stars, and then I got a T10,000, the first T10,000s actually, because for the first couple of events you could only get T100 titles. But the first T10,000 in As Evening Clears, the following event, and from there like you can see that my titles like gradually got high. Well, technically the number is lower, but higher on the tier, right? So like I went from T10,000 to T5,000 and then 2,500 and then 1,000, and I just kind of consistently got 1,000s for a long part of the game's lifespan. And it was when Christmas for Pupipa came around, the first Pupipa Christmas event, that I was like, I've gotten all these T1000s. What if I tried for a T100? you know?
Mhm.
And I didn't know anything about tiering meta or whatever. So I was just playing the event song over and over and over again in the hopes that, like, you know, it feels like I didn't know that some songs scored better than others. Like, I was just like, yeah, I'll just play the song that saves me menuing time, which wasn't even true, I don't think. I think that song is like quite long.
I think it was
But,
Christmas
you know,
Saluta, right?
yep, yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but I managed to get the T100, and I was like, okay, you know what? That's kind of cool. Maybe I'll T100 every Puppy-Paw event from now on. I don't think I did that because I think Circling came around and I did a T100 it. But anyway, that's not the point. Part of it was because I really wanted that Saya and that Arisa card.
Mm.
And I got the Arisa, I didn't get the Saya. That's a whole other story, but yeah, I was just like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do it for the girls. And so it wasn't until May of 2019 that Double Rainbow came around. And people in the old days of the tiering community would know me as that guy who T10 Double Rainbow. Now people don't know who I am in the tiering community, which is all you Zoomers. We've been lost to the sands of time. No, because I was this weirdo who, like, on Twitter was like, hey, I really love Pupipa, and this is like their biggest event. Because at the time we didn't know that, like, oh yeah, we'll get BS3s in the future. Like, we just were like, oh, there's a BS2. Like, this is the big thing. And so I was like, I'm going to do this T10 as a thank you to the girls. Like, if I don't make it, that's, you know, that's just my own limits. Like, I didn't know how hard I had no frame of reference for what a T10 was like. I'd only done a T100. And so I just kind of like jumped into it without really knowing what I was getting into. And if you don't know the history of Bandori, Double Rainbow ended up being the most competitive T10 in the history of Garupa. And it held that title for a long time. It had the highest T10 cutoff for probably another year or two afterward.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't until Noble Rose that it got beat or something like that. But anyway, yeah. For someone who didn't know what they were doing, who didn't know what meta songs were, I had happened to figure out that Legend was pretty good. I didn't know that it was like, you know, the scrub meta choice is what some people would call it. I wasn't playing like A to Z or anything. But I had a couple friends who I had met through, you know, just like being on Twitter and stuff like that. I had a couple friends who were willing to help out and just like kind of pitch in. We played a couple hours. I remember, excuse me. I remember playing for like 5 hours the first day. And I was like, oh yeah, I bet I'm in T10 now. And I was like, number 18 or something. So it was really bad. I was like, oh, well, that's no good. I think I had work in the morning too or something. Anyway, it was a whole mess. But long story short, I ended up just kind of like keeping with it, like not giving up on that. And I ended up tweeting out just like, hey, if anybody wants to room with me, because I didn't know what PubCord was. I didn't know that there was a whole system for this. I was just tweeting out like, hey, if you want a room and play some games, like, come on. And obviously I had a lot of Pupipa mutuals who were also like trying to T100 or whatever. And they were like, okay, sure. And one person who ended up helping me actually DM'd me later because I noticed that our rooms were just filling up. And I was like, wait, what's going on? Man, this person has a lot of friends who play Bandori. They ended up DMing me and were like, hey, I posted your code. I hope you don't mind. I was like, what the heck does that mean? And so, oh, excuse me. On like day 3 of the event, and it's an 8-day event, so like, you know, we're already almost halfway through. I was finally introduced to PubCord, and that definitely changed everything. I actually almost gave up on my T10 because I remember that I was at 5 million and like the T10 cutoff was 10 million.
Oh.
So I was not even close. And all, like, pretty much all 10 spots, there were 2 or 3 people who weren't. in the tiering group, but like all of them were wearing the name AP, and I was like, "Damn you, AP! I don't know who you people are, but screw you." But yeah, ended up joining PubCord. That's how I met Homie, who was also in PubCord, and how I met a lot of people who were just willing to help me out. A lot of people who saw that I was trying to do this thing, trying to make it into T10, and were like, "There's no way this guy's gonna make it. But if we help, then maybe he'll make it." And yeah, it was just like that. Those people, if not for them, there's no way I would have made it. But there were a lot of people who like literally flameless played without any boosts, just to keep playing with me so that I would have a room that was pretty efficient.
Wow.
And like I didn't know them, but they just wanted to help.
And that's the power of PubCord. And funny enough, again, at that time, it wasn't really PubCord. It was a fan-made server. It wasn't the official server at the time yet. So it was just like a fan server. A lot of people coming in who were passionate about the series, and they were all willing to help in and step in and support you. And then of course later became the actual official PubCord from the series. But back then it was a very I wasn't really in the server too much, but it definitely had a familial feel to it, right? Because again, it was felt like a really niche community, liking Bang Dream Girls Band Party, like whatever that game is. But yeah,
isn't that Love Live ripoff?
Yeah. But Soran, it's really interesting because I was just going to ask, because when you mentioned earlier, it's like you weren't familiar with Discord at all, you really weren't familiar with tiering at all, and how you're able to sort of stumble upon all this, and there's a lot of happenings that just so happen to all come together all at the right time and the right moment. That really, I guess they're definitely very fortunate to be able to get the support that you needed. And why don't you finish that story off? What happened in the end, and how were you able to get that title?
Oh man, that story is Double Rainbow is a very interesting case study for tiering events. There's a lot going on. Like obviously, it set the bar for how high a T10 could go. You could talk about there was some drama, not drama per se, but like Homie ended up how do I phrase this? He did not end up getting the T10, and it was a very important event for him and for probably at least a couple of us. I would consider it a very important event for me. But yeah, there was some drama regarding that. Also, like the fact that Niboshi, now that's an old name. Niboshi ended up like starting on day 4 or 5 and still getting a T10 spot. Absolute monster. Yeah, I guess just like the people who ended up helping me out, I just like felt so grateful to all of them, and like I'd grown really attached to them, right? Like because we were just like chatting in the PubCord chats. People would DM me and be like, "Hey, yo, are you going to be playing at this time? Like, should I come help?" I'd be like, "Yes." And so a lot of those people ended up becoming they ended up. I ended up making a server for all of us, the people who helped me and the people who I just really had grown attached to, and that's what SSR is. People might know me as the Admiral of SSR, the leader of SSR. Probably not you Zoomers. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Jim.
Jim. Oh, shout out to Jim, whoever you are.
Somebody just looked up. Yeah, I guess like I think that there are. It can be hard to find where you belong in like something as ambiguous and kind of like, how should I say? It's hard to find a place in a fandom, right? Like it's hard to find where you belong, who you belong with, and stuff like that, where there's so much anonymity, and it's kind of hard when there isn't a structured way to meet people. But this was my way of like, keeping the people that I'd happened to meet, and I'm very grateful to all of them, still grateful to them, and grateful for what I have in SSR. But yeah, I ended up getting that T10. I was top 8, and then ever since then, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try and keep helping the people in SSR, the people who are in
Mm.
PubCord, who are trying to fight against tiering servers, because I was the one trying to fight against tiering servers, um, and not not doing a great job of it until everybody pitched in. I knew what that felt like, and for those
Mhm.
who didn't want to join a tiering server or didn't know that that was a thing, like I didn't know it was a thing, I wanted to be able to support those kind of people.
Yeah.
And so that's how SSR it kind of got a bad rep as like the dark horse of the tiering community, the anti-tiering community. Um, eh,
Well,
you know,
again, regardless of what happened, right? At the end of the day, you had a bunch of people all coming together, working together to achieve the goals, and that's sort of tiering in a nutshell with Bandori, especially with these events, how they're structured. It's always better to work as a team than working by yourself, and you're able to find that, right? You're able to find the resources and be able to successfully do so, and of course, that sort of created the SSR Discord as well, which I was going to ask as well, but like that's sort of how it was created. It was after this event, and you were able to kind of bring people together as well, and also help each other in your goals.
yeah, if anybody ever asks you why SSR is called SSR, the true answer is we call it Starry Skies Returns. But
Mhm.
the lore answer for those of you who are, Soran veterans,
Mm.
the original name came about because one of those members who was helping out was like, you know what? We should just make like a group so that we could all like pitch in whenever Sauron needs it. We could be like the Sauron support roomies, you know? We could be SSR.
Ah.
So that's kind of where that acronym came in, and we filled it out with a more official name later.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, of course, you making SSR and that community that you had built after, working together in your T10 Double Rainbow did eventually get pretty active a couple events later. And that event is Prelude Replay. And you getting T1 in that event. Soren, so obviously, when I look at Prelude Replay, I see Rinko and I'm like, that's not Arisa. What's going on here? So first of all, how did you first decide that you wanted to tier Prelude Replay, get T1 in that event, and like why did you want to choose this particular event, and also what did you do to prepare for this event?
Cool. Okay, this is a loaded question. Let me give some context first.
Mm-hmm.
So my first T10 was Double Rainbow,
Mm-hmm.
and for let's see, about half a year after that, I did not tier anything above a T100. I don't remember if there was even a Pulpipa. There had to be a Ben, at least one.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I only tiered the Pulpipa events because whatever. But people in SSR, having seen that I got a T10, every now and again somebody would pop up who wanted to do a T10. And so we, as the group that had helped me in the first place, were all very willing to help these other people tier. And so that's how SSR kind of like started getting into its role of like the anti-tiering server. Um, it's just because we just, I guess it's kind of my fault. People saw that it was possible and were like, you know what? Maybe I want to do that too. And so a lot of people did. And it wasn't until quite a bit later that one of my closer friends from SSR decided he wanted to T10 Memories of Christmas, the Afterglow Christmas event.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'll T10 it with you. We can just have fun, because I was also going to Kara that year. Recall that this is 2019, so
Oh, okay.
pre-COVID, all
Now the
that.
timelines make sense. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right. So this was Kara 2019. I actually ended up flying over to where he was because we were going to take a road trip up to California
Ah.
for Kara. And so I was just there, and so we were going to be hanging out anyway. So I was like, you know what? I'll T10 with you. It'll just be a fun time. And so that kind of like got me thinking, like, well, if I'm going to T10 for Afterglow, and I already T10 for Pulpipa, I might as well T10 for every band, right? Because I love all the bands, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm bad at choosing favorites. And another part of me like knew that the time I was spending with all these people, um, the memories I was making through tiering, like I knew that wasn't going to be a permanent thing. Like tiering is not a very sustainable hobby. If people do tier like consistently days on end, like you are something else. Like I can't understand it. You are truly built different. But for me, I knew it wasn't going to be a very sustainable hobby. And so I knew that these times would come to an end, so I might as well make memories of it. And so memories of Christmas. So I decided to T10 at least once for every band. And at the time there were only 5, so now I have to T10 another 2 times at some point. But anyway, look forward to that. So I ended up T10ing my ideal as well, which was a fun time in Pubcord. Just kind of got to hang out with Sydney, if people know him, with Homie, who was on this show earlier, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Good guy. I love that guy. And then I ended up accidentally, I say accidentally, getting a T3 for Fleeting Night's Dream. This was a kind of funny event where this might sound a little toxic, but hear me out. One of my members in SSR wanted to T10 that event, but had been told that the roster was full, and so they couldn't get a spot. So I was like, f that shit. If you want a T10, let's get you a T10. I'll T10 with you. And we ended up roping in another person from SSR who's like, yeah, you know what? Sure, that sounds fun. I'm all for being a bit of a pain in the side of other people. So we ended up just sprinting that event. We actually outpaced the T1 runner from the tiering server, which was kind of funny. I think they tweeted out something that was like, you know what? This is the first time in a long time that somebody's like actually giving me a run for my money. Good job, SSR. I was like, you're pretty cool. I can't remember who it was, which is really like unfortunate. They did end up taking the T1, I believe. Okay. Just because like we all didn't care.
Yeah, that's fair.
None of us were aiming for T1.
Yeah.
I think they would have taken it anyway, but yeah. And yeah, because of that long sprint, a lot of people ended up dropping from the event because they're like, oh hell nah. So I ended up taking T3 because nobody contested it for me. I didn't actually end up playing much after the first sprint because I didn't have to.
Wow.
Yeah, so I accidentally got a podium. Anyway, so Prelude Replay was the next one on my list of like T10s to get. And I didn't intend on getting a T1 for that event. I actually intended on T1ing Message for You. It was going to be this whole fight against IPN, who was also aiming for a T1. And that's another name that Zoomers might not know.
IPN's still pretty relevant here. Maybe for those who are not familiar, maybe we'll grab him here. But anyway,
you know what? Yeah, future episodes. But yeah, we were gonna show down a Message for You, but things kind of just ended up falling apart on my end. I kind of lost my reason to tier, and that's like a more personal, not really important story. But I still wanted to like prove to myself, and like as the leader of SSR, I wanted to prove that we could play at the competitive level. Like we weren't just some weirdos in the weird fringes of the tiering community. Like we could take a T1 if we wanted to. And that was not because I was like adamant against tiering servers per se, but more because there was kind of this notion within tiering servers that I was seeing that like people would throw around words like randos or like snipers or whatever, like as if anybody who isn't in a tiering server doesn't have a right to be in the T10. Like it was just this weird like elitist mentality I was seeing among some people. I'm not saying like this is a blanket statement, everybody's like that, but that kind of like idea really pissed me off. And as the guy who had clawed his way to T10 and Double Rainbow with the help of like so many people who just wanted to see someone succeed right next to them, like I wanted to show that you don't have to play by the by the rules, quote unquote, right? Like you don't have to subscribe to the tiering server model. I'm just very fortunate that I have people in my life who are willing to T10 alongside me with no prompting, and we're just like, hey yo, we're gonna get you this T1. I'm not saying that anybody can do it because I'm just very lucky, but I think that it was important to me to show that it's okay to be like an outsider. It's okay to be like the weirdo who's just like clawing their way to the top. Um, I still wanted to get a T1 for SSR, not for me, but for SSR, and I definitely attribute that T1 to SSR, and in particular to Emmy, Sydney, and Sofco SG, um, for deciding to tier with me. Despite the fact that I don't think any of them are Roselia fans. So yeah, it was huge shout outs to Miyuki. She was an incredible competition. It was kind of a messy situation, and if people are curious about how Prelude Replay went down, there are plenty of people who will tell you about it. At least from my side of the story, I just wanted to get the T1 for SSR, and what ended up happening is she ended up getting feature blocked for like 24 hours on day 5 or something like that. So she was forced to drop. And you know, realistically speaking, I had been ahead of her like the entire event, so I don't think the result would have changed, but it was a really unfortunate, like, you never know, right? You never know. It was a really unfortunate circumstance, and it kind of like feels weird being the Pupipa stan who took a Roselia T1. Like, oh, wouldn't somebody else like have wanted this more, you know, like that kind of feeling. But for me, Prelude Replay was very important in a lot of ways. Like, for one, it was the sequel story to my favorite event story in Garupa, which is Blossoming in Largo. If people haven't read that story, it's all about like Sayo trying to help Rinko try and find a club that she wants to join. And it's just like this very wholesome, like Rinko learning to like step past her social anxiety and stuff like that, like try to step outside her comfort zone. And she ends up making the decision, I'm going to challenge like the traumatic fear that I had when I messed up during a piano competition. I'm going to join another piano competition. And that's what Prelude Replay is. It's her taking on that challenge. And for me, that was like a very powerful story of just like, I've always kind of like you see that I do a lot of different things, right? Like I tiered, I translate, I draw, I stream, I do all these sorts of things. And that's partly because like, I'm just not sure what to do. Like I've never been sure like what is right for me. And I just enjoy a lot of different things, and I guess like I kind of related to Rinko in the sense of like I'm just not sure. I just don't really know what to do. I feel kind of lost, and so seeing her like be able to face her past like that was really heartening to me. It was also the last event that Akishan voiced Rinko in the game. So that was important. And Rinko is one of my top 3 favorite characters alongside Arisa and Kasumi. So it's not that I don't like Rinko or anything. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to tier Roselia bit. It was like, no, I love Rinko. I want Rinko.
For sure.
I want a Rinko T1. But
for sure.
Yeah, there was just like a lot of stuff that kind of like ended up, again, like we talk about coincidences over and over again, but it was just like a lot of coincidences lining up that were like, all right, I guess this will be my swan song, my Prelude Replay. I'm gonna yeah,
for sure. You know, again, Soran, you mentioned, you know, I wouldn't say like there's no such thing as an undeserved T1. You definitely, with all the hard work, especially with the competition that you faced, definitely well deserved. We definitely heard some sides from, you know, the other side with the tiering server of how, you know, they were trying to keep up and they just couldn't, and of course the featured block really kind of nailed it in the coffin. But
right.
for you, and in your perspective of, you know, getting that T1 in SSR and with the help of SSR, any notable parts about that journey of you getting T1 that you were thinking, oh, like I'm not sure if this was doable, or were there parts where you're like, wow, this is going to be really challenging, and what ended up happening once you saw that 24-hour ban?
Yeah, here's the anime love story. Anime love story. Sorry, somebody in chat said lovely, and I was like, oh, love story. No. Here's the anime backstory. I think day 2 or 3. Probably two. Um, I I ended up kind of like it was the exhaustion and like stress of like seeing the numbers kind of go back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, there was a point of weakness, and this was the only one during the entire event. I think the only one in my entire tiering community, actually, tiering journey. I
Yeah.
don't know, history. There we go. Where I was like, wow, I I'm not sure. I feel really anxious about this. Like, I don't know if this is going to happen anymore. And I kind of voiced that because I was in a VC with LDSSR
Hmm.
people. I voiced that out loud. I was like, I feel really, I don't know if this is going to happen. And that was when Emmy decided, like, all right, I'm T10ing this. Like, all right, we're going to make sure you get this, bud. It was like just this kind of like really soft, heartwarming moment of just like someone who had no obligation to do anything, right?
Hmm.
No obligation to help me, deciding I'm going to spend several $100s and several dozen hours uh, because this guy feels a little bit anxious right now.
Hmm.
And like that's the kind of people that are in SSR. That's the kind of people that are all over the community, and you just have to like find them, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
yeah, I think like also because SSR is pretty small, like we were running with a crew of like less than 10 people probably versus a tiering server of like over 100. We were in pub court a lot. And so
Hmm.
we happened to meet a lot of really cool people from there as well. Some of you might know Zippy's app.
Yeah.
Uh, she ended up T100ing that, and we spent a lot of time together. And that's how she ended up joining SSR, actually. We ended up seeing her again and message for you. And I was like, Zappy helped me a lot during Prelude. I'm gonna help Zappy. And so we abducted her into our
Yeah.
our non-tiering server and helped her T10 message for you. Um, yeah, I guess just like if my story if there's anything to be said about all of what I've done through tiering, like what I've learned, it's that one, it's okay to do things that you look back on and are like, wow, that was a huge waste of time. Because I do sometimes feel like
Hmm.
a lot of tiering is just like grinding for grinding's sake, right? Like what are
Yeah.
you really accomplishing?
Yeah.
Unless you have meaning to apply to it. And that was for me being able to look back on all those T10s and being like, those moments matter to me. Like,
Hmm.
I can look back and say that my double rainbow T10, my message, my memories of Christmas T10, like all those were very important moments in my life. And I can point to things that made me want to T10. And that helps me feel like, okay, I'm going to be able to keep these memories with me for like the rest of time. Like I'm always going to be able to look back and be like, this was a very important moment in my life. Even if like now in my old decrepit age, I wouldn't be able to T10 as vigorously, perhaps. Though I guess maybe Viva La Life proved that that's not true. Whatever. That's not the point. The point is, I wouldn't be as willing to do it anymore, I guess, is my point.
That's fair. But again, I think you really nailed it right there, Soren. When it comes to like the motivations to tiering, a lot of people maybe from the outside they don't really see sort of I guess the value, or maybe they kind of question why people tier and do this and spend all this time. But you basically nailed it, right? It's the experience, it's the memories, and just being able to go look back and be like, wow, that was it may have been a very big time spent, a lot of time spent on it, but it was well worth it to be able to just hang out with people you really enjoy hanging out with, and yeah, it's just overall it's definitely an experience that you don't really get to know until you know it yourself, and whether or not it's
For sure.
through a tiering server or whether or not it's through pub court or the so-called anti-tiering server. I think it's everyone has their own experience and ways of being able to tier and be able to share that memory of getting to represent something that they really enjoy. In your case, of course, Rinko's story, Akashan, all that, and it all kind of worked out and all came together. So um, And also, just to say, tiering in general and competition in tiering is healthy for the game too, right? Friendly
Oh, for sure.
competition.
Yeah, for sure.
It's healthy.
Please spend money on God of
Yeah.
Buy those Black Friday stars.
Well, the Black Friday stars right now, you can't do anything with them. Right?
Yeah. We'll get banners soon. All right, we'll get an event soon, guys. Don't worry.
Oh,
way to date our episode, Phil.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but maybe before we continue to dampen that mood in there. Other than what's going on right now, any other future events that you would like to do in the future for tiering? I know you mentioned that you want to get a T10 for every band at least at some point. Is that still something you're doing, or is there any other thing that you're planning on doing as well?
Yeah, I mean, I T100 every Polypa event, so if it's a Polypa event, you might see me in the pubs. Just say hi. Yeah, I don't really have an idea of what Morphonica and Reza Suilan events to T10. Because unfortunately, most of my friends who did play Bang Dream have kind of like fallen off. So like, it would be a very lonely like, oh, I'm pubbing, or like, oh, I'm in pub court, because I don't want to join a tiering server. That's just not my style.
Fair.
But yeah, I guess like my favorite characters from those are like, I like Nanami a lot, and I like Roka and Chuchu a lot. So I mean, I like all the characters. So like, whatever. It really doesn't matter who's on the banner. I'll tier it.
Yeah,
but
you don't have to necessarily announce exactly what you're tiering. You don't want to spoil it if you don't want to. So, but again, if you do plan on this so-called snipe, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I hate it when people say I'm sniping a bit. It's like, bro. Yeah, it's more that I don't have any cards, and I don't really spend money on gacha. So it's just gonna be a slow process of amassing 3 stars. Yeah. And eventually an event will come where I'm like, yeah, I could actually tier this. I have a band for this.
Yeah. Well, again, Soren, if you do end up doing another tiering, all the best. Best of luck in that. And again, big shout outs to your big grind on getting T1 on Prelude Replay. It was great to hear from the perspective of the winning side and see what they did to persevere in that challenge. And again, no T1 title is undeserved, so big congrats to you again on that. Again, it's been like years since that happened, but still,
yeah, it has been like 2 years or something.
Yeah, but regardless, still it's great to hear from that story, and it's great to have you share that experience.
Well, I'm always happy to share. And again, shout outs to Miyuki. She was incredible competition. And in any other circumstance, I'm sure she would have gotten a T1 easily. I was just built different. No, I just had a lot of really incredible support.
Yeah. And in many episodes, we've talked about how support and tiering is so important.
Dude, I'm just going to put it out there for any of you in like watching this or listening to this. If you think that the tier is the most important part, like, yeah, it's important. Like, obviously you have to play, but your support is so vital. Like, I would say it's more important than any person manning the freaking account that's in T1.
Yeah, definitely.
Your support is so important.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, Soren, this will basically conclude our episode today. And again, big shout outs and thank you to you for sharing all the experiences you had in translating and tiering. A lot of great stories came out today. Is there any other last bit of shout outs or last words you'd like to say to the listeners out there?
Not really, but I guess like just to close out, again, like huge thank yous for having me on the show. Whoever was like, hey, we should have Soran on here. Huge thank yous to you too. It's been fun talking and getting to know Phil a little bit better. We've always been kind of like, I don't want to say dancing around each other, but like, we're like kind of just never really had an excuse to like encounter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we had this excuse, and I hope that it's the start of something better, something nice,
more.
Something new,
something more. Yeah. Again, I know you for quite some time. I've followed your translations and all that for quite some time, but again, there was never really an opportunity to really get to know each other because either we'd be doing other projects, or perhaps if, let's say, you're tiering, well, you're not really tiering in a server. You're tiering other places, and I'm kind of tiering other places. But either way, it was great to be able to, get to know you a bit more as well and get to hear from you. And of course, for anyone who's listening, of course, all links in the description below of this video if you want to follow Soran either on Twitter, and the Twitter is also on the video as well. Twitch, YouTube, all that fun stuff. That's all in the links in the description below. And I'm sure, as just a brief question for one of our viewers as well, I'm sure that if you would like to possibly join SSR, you might want to. You could hook up with Soran and see how things go, and if you're willing to help Soran and his buds on some events, maybe you'll get some attendance. You'll get admittance in there.
I don't want to break it to you, but there's maybe like 3 people at SSR who still play God, but you're not gonna have much luck getting us to help.
Well, again, it's a really interesting legacy that SSR brought in, regardless. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting for sure. But yeah, I think this will conclude our RePHIL Studio episode today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. And this is your host, SBPhilos4. We'll be back ready as our set has been complete. So get your cans ready, and we'll be back on the next set and the next RePHIL very soon. But until then, thank you all so much for listening, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Next one's the last one.